So Jerry Geib with MnDOT is going to talk to us about a concrete project they had on I-394. Jerry?
Thank you, Todd. And this also fits in really well with the concrete pavement preservation guide manual that we heard about this morning too. So nice fit here, and I'm going to narrate the story of the life of our Interstate 394 pavement. This pavement, which was built in 89 and 90, two different directions, had its first overlay in 96. Its second one, it was milled off and overlaid again in 2004 for a wine. There were two distinct types of wine going on there. I'll explain that in a minute. And it's being rehabbed this summer. We have not finished the concrete diamond grinding on it, but really the hero of this story, I think, is the next generation concrete surface, which Todd mentioned earlier, and it's really a great pavement fix. I'd tell you the next generation concrete surface is the quietest surface I've ever been on. And if you'd ever like to, well, drive across some of the work that's been done around here, or if you're in Minnesota, I'd set the bar really high and say, you're not going to believe how smooth and how quiet this pavement is. And while everyone would understand those words until you ride on it, I think you're going to say, I understood what you said. It's quieter than I've ever heard. And that's about the best way I can explain it. That's kind of a fun day at work when something's really going to exceed your expectations. So here's a close-up picture of the final product. What we haven't completed and will be done over the next couple of weeks up in Minnesota is these deeper grooves in between. So it's actually being ground in a two-step process where the high parts of the ridges type, this area is in here, will be grooved, or all that work's been done. I've got a couple pictures of that, but we haven't, the contractor hasn't come back in the second pass to make the deeper grooves. Our spec also has kind of a hold point, so after they've done this first pass, as I'll call it, they look for areas of localized roughness. They'll touch up anything at that point and then come back and put the final groove in there. Picture from Terry Kramer, one of our diamond grinding contractors. So we're in Minneapolis on I-394. When you're coming out of downtown headed to the west, you're on some super elevated structures, and then you hit fill areas here, and we go right in here. So about a 1.4 mile project area right in there is where we're working. Here's kind of a picture to take a look at what it's like. We've got 3 lanes in each direction, and 2 lanes in the middle are reversible for traffic coming in and out of the Minneapolis during the day. And it's interesting, the concrete in the middle was never overlaid. As I described the wine, I really can't figure out why we didn't do that, but the 3 lanes in each direction did get their overlays.
Hey, Jerry, what are the black stripes you're doing?
Actually, I think this is some of our longitudinal joint microsurfacing. And I pulled this off of Google Maps, and I'm not even sure what year we did that because it's not out there right now. Here's the original concrete on the HOV lanes, and here's where we get into the story of my 2 wines. First one is the tire pavement, what I call a wine. It's probably a little louder if you measure it dBA, but it makes a distinct octave. Our concrete guys done all this study, and it's annoying. It's a whine. So we had the tire pavement whine going on. The big problem was the neighborhood whine, because the neighbors heard it, and they didn't like it, and they were well connected. And our legislators passed a law that said, MnDOT, go out and overlay that concrete with hot mix asphalt, because we don't like the noise. So that's what happened in that first overlay that we did. So concrete eastbound, westbound, 1990, 10 inches thick, 1.5 inch dowels. At that time, we did a 27-foot skewed panel. We currently go 15-foot perpendicular. Our project area is about 1.4 miles long. In the first overlay, the one that was required by law, was an 1.5-inch overlay. Rides about 100 inches per mile. It was in place for 8 years. It was pretty decent. This would be a good example of true preventive maintenance type of thing, that we didn't let the ride get too bad when we milled this off and put the second overlay on. The longitudinal joints were raveling out a little, and we probably did a little patching. This is a little tough to see, but the first overlay going on right here, our 3.0 ride qualities in that 105 inches per mile. So most of the time the bit pavement was right in this area, fairly smooth. But we knew we were going to have to start doing some longitudinal joint work and patching, so we milled it off. Traditional milling machine, and at this point we thought, let's try the ultra-thin bonded wearing course. It's got a better tack, maybe it'll hold together a little longer. It was a new product. It was not available. We really hadn't done an ultra-thin in '96 when we put the first overlay on there. So we thought, let's, in 2004, the pavement's 14, 15 years old, milled that first overlay off. Milling got a little deep, a little rough in some areas, trying to scrape it off with the traditional machine. But I'd say it lasted 11 years. Well, it was in place 11 years. The first 8 were pretty good performance. This might have been a good case where if we got in there, we probably let it go about 3 inches longer, 3 years, because the IRI dropped way down at the end, and it really started to get rough before we came in with our concrete rehab project this year. Here's kind of what it looked like in a 2014 video log picture. So you can see how the longitudinal joint there was in tough shape. The Metro Maintenance had spent a lot of time, nighttime work, patching the longitudinal joints and the potholes, so it was ready for a big repair. So this year, we micro-milled the ultra-thin bonded wearing course off. We wanted to kind of get it a little smoother. Major concrete rehab I'll talk about in the next generation concrete surface for the final grind. Engineers estimate, we had some pavement and bridge work. The low bids were high. We let this pretty late in the springtime when all the contractors were busy. So we got one bidder and we got some high bids. We decided to go with it. What's interesting in MnDOT, we will do plenty of full depth repairs. So the original estimate involved full depth repairs on 75% of the joints and partial depth repairs on the rest. We did a little less than that when we milled off the ultra thin bonded wearing course. The concrete was in a little better shape than we expected. Typical full depth repair there. You can see on the other side, I think we did some of the partial depth milling. So we've got 11 bars in there. I think we grease one side to kind of keep it as a working joint and not the other group of bars. Here's the partial depth repair on a transverse joint. And I think we did almost 100% of the longitudinal joints also. It's a little tough to see, but the micro milling did a pretty good job of getting all the bituminous off the pavement. When we went out there and started doing the repairs in westbound direction, we did about, I think, 25% full depth only, so that was in a lot better condition. Coming back into Minneapolis, we did about 50% of the full depth repairs. So our concrete was in a little better shape than we expected. I took this picture, I think, a couple weeks ago, and I think what we see here is most of the first pass. So it actually took 3 passes of diamond grinding to get this one. The first one was more like the traditional grinding that we do all the time. And there might be one picture where you can see, to smooth out the pavement as best they could, they needed to grind off a lot of material. And if you tried to do that with the next generation concrete surface grinding head, those blades are spaced too tight that you'd just be clogging up the grinding head. So we had the contractor came in, did a lot of milling to get it flat and smooth, kind of in the conventional diamond grinding method. You can see at the top of this photo is what the conventional grinding looks like, and that's kind of after the fins have been knocked off, because when they grind it, some of those fins are really high, and you got to knock those things off. But the bottom picture is what it looks like after it's had the first pass of the next generation grinding done. This area headed into Minneapolis. It's got most of the, well, in this section, it's had the first pass of the next generation grind done on it. I think you can see up here where it kind of has that change in color right about there, down the very top edge toward the median. I think they made that pass with the conventional grinding head in this area here, which is shaded a little, looks a little different because it hasn't had that first pass. So at this point, we've done all of the grinding on the first pass on the lanes that were repaired and patched. We haven't started grinding the HOV lanes yet. I think we got about 2 weeks left to put the final, then to put those final deep grooves in there. So my drive-by results, and I drove through it last weekend also. Right now, even before it's finished with the deeper grooves, it's very smooth, it's very quiet. I think our spec pays a ride bonus at, when you get under 60 inches per mile. I think they're gonna be well under there when all the final numbers get in there, or get measured. We're gonna do a lot of IRI measurement this fall. As part of this project, because we're going from that hot mix overlay that was required by law to a concrete surface, we're gonna do a lot of onboard sound intensity measurements. We've got some pre-measurement work done. We're gonna go back out there post. I think our environmental office might also be doing some of the pass-by noise, which is what they like to measure. So all this data will be processed and collected. Maybe I can give you an update in 2016 down in Nashville to show the final numbers, because I think they're going to be impressive. There's that same picture, the final surface. We did some of this up in Duluth on a brand new pavement also, just a little south of Duluth. We were doing a lot of our concrete guys. I'm working on the asphalt side, so I'm here to tell a concrete story. But our concrete office on a brand new project wanted to try and measure the effects of sawing, tining, different things on the ride. So when they tined a brand new pavement up there, they left a foot wide strip so that our profilers could go up there. We measured concrete that hadn't been tined at all, hadn't really even been surfaced. It was completely smooth. They measured it after the joints were cut. They measured it after the normal texturing was put on. So they really were trying to look at the impacts that the profile devices, if they were affected by tining or the joints and things. So they did a study there, and since we had left some work, some pavement not tined at all, we went in there, and then part of the project was the plan to put this new next generation surface on a brand new concrete, and it's extraordinarily quiet. First time I drove across it, and I knew about the area it was in, and I was listening. And when you hear nothing, you know you're on it. What happened? So pretty neat stuff. And it started at Purdue, so we give Purdue credit for doing some of this initial research and things. And then up at Minroad, Bernard Izaway-Kai is our concrete research engineer, and he did a tremendous amount of work to analyze the surface, come up with, to help the concrete grinding contractors in the industry come up with just the right spacing for the first pass and the second pass. I think you can do it in one pass also, but right now this project is being done in two. So little philosophy here at the end. These 3 days we're together, we're sharing some really good information. So if you want to go far, go together. Everybody find a good idea here. You know, when you get back to your DOT, you can go fast alone and implement. And I've heard some people mention that, you know, I picked up some good ideas here and we went back and here's what we implemented. So there's my African proverb. Any questions? See me before we break for the end of our conference, or you can shoot me an email.